Director with the Council on American Islamic Relations, and this is CAIR on Air. Our topic today is welcoming new protections and fighting bigotry. CAIR on the Air is every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today, we're going to be talking about new TPS designations for Yemeni nationals inside the U.S., and then we're going to talk about a cemetery desecration incident that happened in Maryland. Our first guest is Ahmed Mohamed, our legal director from CAIR New York. Ahmed, are you here?
I am. Can you see me and hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you. You're doing fine. You're looking fine. How you doing, brother? Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you so much for having me, Robert. I'm glad to be here from the New York City office.
The great state of New York, the great city of New York.
That's
it never
right.
sleeps, and neither does CAIR New York. So we have you on here because you're something of an expert on all things Yemeni at CAIR. You're very involved with the community. And we had some really good news break, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So we at CAIR, along with our partners and allies throughout the nation, have been working really hard to try to get the State Department, the Secretary of the Homeland Security, to redesignate Yemen for temporary protective status, TPS, which did two things, really, two very, very important things. Number one, it extended TPS for the roughly 1,800 Yemenis who have TPS status right now for another 18 months. That's really important. The second big victory, which is extremely crucial and does not happen very often, is that the Secretary did something that's called redesignating Yemen for TPS, which is it reopens up the process for folks who do not have TPS but qualify for TPS to now apply for TPS based on this redesignation that goes into effect starting tomorrow.
Can you tell the viewer what TPS, temporary protected status, is?
Yeah, so TPS is a status that the INA, the Immigration and Naturalization Act, allows the Secretary to classify if there has been a humanitarian crisis in a specific country. And here, Yemen is in the middle of a war, and they're also in the middle of a COVID crisis, a famine, and it's the world's biggest humanitarian crisis right now. And it's been designated for temporary protective status since 2015, which means that irrespective of your lawful status here in the United States, if you have TPS, you also get employment authorization to work here lawfully, and it prevents you from being deported and removed from the country while you have TPS status. So it comes with a lot of protections and allows you to remain in the United States lawfully.
This is excellent news, especially if you're Yemeni and you're in the United States. There are some 1,700 Yemenis nationals in the U.S. that are benefiting from this. This authorization, this now extends it to, I think, about 400 more Yemenis that are in the U.S. And this is all really good news. Can you tell me what this means for Yemenis in the U.S. seeking to escape the situation in Yemen?
Yeah, look, for the 1,700 to 1,800 folks that already have TPS, it means that they won't be susceptible to deportation and removal over the next 18 months. And hopefully that this protection continues. That's vital because they can't go back to a war-torn country where their lives are at risk. And so that's vital protections that they get to stay here. And a lot of those people over the last 6 years have established families and relationships here. And it would be very, inhumane to have to remove them, from their families and relationships and their community that they've built and they've become, leaders in. That's really, really important. For the additional 400 to 500 people that this will help, it will give them an opportunity to lawfully stay here. I know that, I have friends who, may be here on student visas who just graduated, and they're worried. They're worried that what's going to happen if they can't get a full-time job and they could extend their visas, or do they stay here and become undocumented? Do they take the risk of being put into deportation proceedings and locked up for God knows how long, or do they just go back and take the risk of famine, of no health care, of war, of being maybe arrested or tortured because of their political views opposing either the current government or the Houthi forces, depending on where they live, right? So there's a lot of fear. The best part about the redesignation, now I'll warn people of this, is that you have to be present to be eligible in the United States as of July 5th. So that means that, and you have to maintain continuous presence in the United States, right? Unless you get special authorization and that's documented through USCIS with advanced permission, you can't leave the country. So if you're trying to get TPS for that first time, and you're here on July 5th, and you decide to take a day trip to Canada and come back, don't do it. Don't do it. That's going to potentially cause you to be ineligible for TPS. And the secretary has done something that it's not done very often, which is normally the time period where you can apply for TPS is 180 days. What they've done here is they've created an exception through the discretionary process that the secretary has, and said that for folks who are eligible for TPS for the first time, they can apply for TPS at any time during the next 18-month period. So obviously we want you to apply as soon as possible, but you can apply a year from now, as long as you put that application in before the current TPS extension expires.
Just as a general rule of thumb, don't wait a year though. What are you advising Yemenis in the US right now?
So number one, we need to see what the notice looks like from the Federal Registry, which goes out tomorrow. We have an advanced copy, but it's not official. And what it's going to do is, so for folks who need to reapply and do an extension of their TPS, they cannot wait. They have, I believe, a 60-day window from tomorrow to reapply to get an extension of their temporary protective status. So do not wait for your current status to expire, right? You get a card for TPS. Don't wait until your status is expired to reapply. You need to apply as soon as possible to make sure that your TPS status is, that there's not a gap in your TPS status. That's very, very important because we did see last year a case where, Trump's Border Protection Agency, or ICE, I should say, tried to enter an individual into ICE proceedings, removal proceedings, alleging that there was like a 1-day gap in their TPS protection. That ended up being factually inaccurate. There was no gap, but that was one of the bases for them initiating removal proceedings against this individual, saying that his status in the US had lapsed and that he was now removable. So do it as soon as possible. You should, in New York City, there are a lot of resources available. You can call 311, for example, and just say the words Action NYC, and it'll connect you to a free immigration hotline, which will get you some immigration services. You can contact the Arab American Association of New York, which is in Bay Ridge, which is a heavily populated Yemeni area as well. They're providing, I believe, TPS assistance. There are a lot of immigration resources here in New York City to help folks. If you need us to connect you with one of those resources, you can always call our CAIR New York office, or send us an email, or put an incident report asking for assistance, and we'll connect you with the right resources.
That's great. Now, you said the Trump administration I don't like saying Trump's name too often. In all my press releases I write the former administration. The less I hear the name, the better. But do you think this is a sign that the Biden administration, when it comes to some of the former policies of the last administration, they're trying to make it easier for people, nationals that are from prior Muslim ban countries in the U.S. In these cases, especially when they're reauthorizing, just not extending, which was what the Trump administration did.
Look, I think this is a positive step. It was a positive step, but it was a needed step. It was a necessity. Really, if the Biden administration did not redesignate Yemen, it would have been an injustice. They needed to redesignate it to allow the additional 500 or so individuals here in the United States to seek that protection. Otherwise, they would have been forced to go back into the middle of a war-torn country and, in essence, put their lives at risk. I think this was a necessity. Obviously, we applaud the Biden administration for doing the right thing, but I think it's important for us to also recognize this was an easy thing for them to do, right? We have seen them, take some positive steps, especially in reversing or rescinding proposed rules that the previous administration tried to pass to make it harder and to be more invasive. But we are seeing a lot of shortfalls, and we're seeing a lot of continuations, from the Biden administration when it comes to immigration-related matters. Unfortunately, in a lot of ways, the Biden administration is, it's a pig with lipstick, right? And a pig with lipstick is still a pig at the end of the day. So I don't think we should be satisfied with window dressings. And so that's really, really important for us to continue to hammer home that, look, unfortunately, the administration right now has deported, I think they're at a rate, they're doing they're more effective and more efficient actually at deporting individuals than the previous administration was. But they're still deporting individuals at record numbers. They still have children in cages. They still have, detainees who have COVID that are behind bars, right? They still are, haven't provided relief for Muslim ban individuals. The administration has the power. Biden has the power to issue humanitarian relief visas for Yemeni Americans, for Syrian Americans, for individuals in humanitarian areas. The government right now is telling us that Yemen is so bad that they're getting TPS, which by definition, you have to be in a humanitarian disaster declaration, right? That's what TPS is.
Extraordinary requirements, either armed
Right.
conflict, natural disasters, epidemics.
And Yemen fits
these are
all of
large-scale
those.
events.
And Yemen fits
Yeah,
all of those things, not just one. And sadly. And so there is a basis for the Biden administration to say, you know what, for individuals who are impacted by the Muslim ban, who are in these areas that are designated for TPS, I'm going to give them humanitarian relief and create a process to allow them to come into this country. They can do that. They do it in special occasions as well, where someone, for example, has been unlawfully deported or unjustly deported, and there's a hardship of some sort. They'll allow a humanitarian application. You put in the application, and historically some have been granted. If you find a way to illustrate to the government that you have relief once you get back into the country, and they're failing to do that, and we can't forget about that. There's the No Muslim Ban Act that needs to get passed. There's the Keeping Our Promises to Families Act.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be done.
Now I'm going to ask our producer to do two things. In our chat box behind the scenes, I dropped one link that is for our press release from yesterday, linking to the announcement for extension, redesignation of TPS for Yemen. It also mentions that TPS was extended and redesignated for Syria back in January, how we're still waiting on TPS to be extended and redesignated for Somalia, how we're in a wait pattern for Sudan, all hinging on legal matters. But check out our press release. And the second thing is, Ahmed, you hit it right on the nose. Last week we had 2 weeks ago we had a National Muslim Advocacy on Capitol Hill virtual edition. We have an action alert link. Click that. You want your member of Congress to support the Keeping Our Promises Act that would free up the diversity visas for individuals that won their visa lottery but could not apply for the Muslim ban between the last couple of years of the Trump administration. Then take action and let your member of Congress know. You might have missed the advocacy day. Maybe you even went. Click our link. Let your members of Congress know that they should be supporting this legislation. Yeah. Ahmed, I have to jump to the next segment.
Last thing.
One last thing. What is it?
About that diversity visa you mentioned. So those are the past, yes. But sadly, what we're also getting reports of right now, and I want to mention this, and maybe we'll work on it in the near future, is that the people who have been selected for that diversity visa program this year, especially Yemeni Americans or Yemenis, are reporting that their applications are not being processed. There's a lot of fear right now that they're going to miss out on this year's diversity visa process, which ends in September 30th, because their applications aren't being processed. So
you think this is kind of like a shadow ban just because of all the extra security layering there is?
Yep. Absolutely. They're going to say that they don't have enough time to process these and a bunch of people are going to miss out. So we need to hit that home as well.
I think we're going to have to just call this a shadow ban, and we're going to have to start making some noise about it. Thank you, Ahmed, for keeping us up to date.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Our next guest is the CAIR office and Maryland Director, Zainab Chaudry. I think she's in the backstage. Zainab, there you are. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us.
Welcome, Robert. How are you doing? Good to be here.
I'm doing well. I'm happy you're here, but I'm not happy about the situation that brings you here to us. So can you give us a breakdown of what's happening in Maryland with regards to this anti-Semitic cemetery desecration and what CAIR is doing?
Yeah, of course. And I completely agree with you. I wish we were discussing a more positive topic. Unfortunately, over the weekend, there was a horrific act of vandalism that occurred at a Jewish cemetery in Baltimore on German Hill Road, where several headstones were vandalized. They were defaced with anti-Semitic graffiti, including neo-Nazi swastikas. And so the graffiti has been removed since the incident was reported. The cemetery gates have been locked to help prevent a repeat incident. But unfortunately, this has obviously concerned and alarmed not only the Jewish community, but all those who are concerned about religious freedom in our communities. CAIR is urging anybody with any information to contact the Baltimore City Police Department at 410-396-2411. We have publicly condemned this incident, but of course, condemnations alone are not enough. We know that whenever any one faith community comes under attack, it's an attack on all faith communities. And this is just the latest in a long string of, unfortunately, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic incidents, and other hate bias motivated incidents that have occurred in the state. So we are strategizing with community partners and coalition partners to figure out how we can be more vocal and more public, and how we can support the communities who are directly impacted by this latest incident.
If it's our Jewish brothers and sisters today, it could be a Muslim community or another faith community tomorrow. And that's why we need to stand in solidarity with any faith group, including our Jewish brothers and sisters, when they're facing acts of intimidation, violence, harassment, desecration like this. What type of statement has the Baltimore police issued about this?
So they haven't actually been forthcoming with a lot of information. They have basically said that they're aware of the incident. Obviously, these incidents are not only disrespectful to those who are deceased, but it also causes tremendous pain to the families and loved ones who have loved ones who are buried in that cemetery. So we are working with the city councilman or county councilman actually of that specific district to figure out what the next steps are. CAIR has been in touch with Baltimore City Councilman Z. Cohen, who is leading a unity rally tomorrow morning at 10:45 a.m. that CAIR will be present at outside of the cemetery, basically making a public stand against anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred. This is not the first time a Jewish cemetery has been targeted. In the past, we know Maryland Muslims and Muslims around the country donated thousands of dollars to help fix the damage that had been done to cemeteries across the nation And I think that's kind of like the silver lining to these kind of incidents. We see communities from different walks of life come together and want to step up and support and help, send a message of solidarity to the communities who are directly impacted. So obviously we send our condolences to the families whose loved ones' graves were directly affected by this hate crime, and to the Jewish community at large. And we think that it's imperative that all of us unite across racial, religious, ethnic lines to condemn all forms of hatred in our state, but not just condemn, but vocally mobilize and raise awareness about these incidents.
Well, I think we're raising awareness right now. Are there any details on the suspects? Is there anywhere people can go to hopefully identify or, provide tips?
So at this point, we don't have any information, unfortunately, about who's behind this crime. We are encouraging anybody with information to reach out to the Baltimore City Police Department, 410-396. I'm going to double check on the number, 410-396-2411, and let them know if you have any information. Your identity can remain anonymous. We hope that they're treating this incident seriously. We will, whenever something like this happens, we call on law enforcement to do their due diligence to help bring justice to the communities who are impacted by these incidents and bring the suspects to justice as well. This is unfortunately something that we're seeing an uptick in anti-Semitism, also Islamophobia, other forms of hatred and bigotry across the board. And we really, this is a reminder to all of us that we need to stand together. We need to stay united. We need to stay visible, vocal, raise our voices and speak out to condemn these kind of incidents and just rally around those who are directly impacted by them.
I see you are rallying around. We just posted CAIR-Maryland Outreach Office's statement in the chat. Please click that to see more information. What else is CAIR-Maryland doing right now? I know you're attending that rally. Can you tell people again where that rally is again tomorrow?
Of course, the rally is going to be tomorrow morning, so Friday morning at 10:45 a.m. Outside of the cemetery. We will be issuing a community advisory or an action alert, encouraging people who would like to attend and support to come out. That should be going out later on this evening with the address and more details. We are encouraging folks to bring signs in solidarity with the Jewish community and to solidarity with all communities who are impacted by hatred and intolerance, and to just show up and support. Obviously, maintaining social distancing guidelines is appropriate, is comfortable based on your vaccination status and CDC guidelines and the state guidelines. But it's just really important to be present and visible in these times. And, for the Muslim community especially, we have the reminder, Prophet Mohamed, peace be upon him, he one time stood up to pray out of respect for a Jewish funeral procession. And he was questioned that he's Muslim, why is he standing up during a Jewish funeral procession? And he responded, is this not a human soul? And this is, a sound hadith that really kind of makes us reflect on the value of human life and how, some things transcend faith. And we really hope that the Muslim community will also show up and support and extend their condolences to those who are directly impacted by this crime.
And I think it's a universal value, regardless of religion. I know it's in Islam. I know it's in Judaism, all the Abrahamic faiths, other faiths, that we respect the cemeteries, we respect the places of the dead, and that we reject this type of violence. Graffiti is violence, that we reject this type of intimidation. So,
and there's one more I think is worth pointing here. Some who would like to politicize these kind of incidents by saying, tying them in with other issues. And obviously, each issue has its own place, but it's really important to note that nothing justifies these kind of crimes, regardless of our political views, our personal views. There's no justification for these kind of incidents, and we have a responsibility to speak out against them. So I just wanted to point that out there because I saw some comments that were shown to me of people who were commenting about, Israel and Palestine, and it's really important not to conflate the two issues. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've actually seen people attack the Muslim community when we stand up for our Jewish brothers and sisters, saying, "Why are you?" We're doing this because these are our neighbors, these are our friends, in some case, even family. So it's really important that we all stand together. I want to thank you for all.
Islam teaches us that that's what we need to do, is stand up for justice, and even as we fight for justice, we can't be complicit in injustices against others as well. So it ties in with the teachings. So.
Do you have any final words as we're wrapping up the program?
No, just that, we hope that, the families that are directly impacted by this incident find comfort and solace in the fact that the interfaith community is rallying behind them and who is going to be showing up to support them at the rally tomorrow. And we encourage folks to stay vigilant. Obviously, we live in times when hatred is emboldened. So many communities are impacted by it. If you see something, make sure that if you see something hateful happening or intolerant happening, make sure that you are bringing attention to it, reporting it to authorities, organizations like CAIR, so we can take action and just show support to those who are directly impacted by these incidents.
Our unity is 1,000 times stronger than their hate. And with that, I'd like to end today's program. Thank you so much, Sister Zainab, for joining us. Inshallah, we're going to have you on future programs as always, as you're doing amazing work in Maryland. So thank you for being there and representing the Muslim community in CAIR.
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And with that, we've concluded another episode of CAIR on the Air. Again, we are live streaming on Facebook every Tuesday and Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We put all our resources in the chat box. They all go back to the CAIR website at cair.com. And make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and consider CAIR a trusted Muslim source of news. Thank you, and assalamu alaikum.